And welcome to Thrift Shop Biography. This is the one about Alan Sugar. Thank you for listening. Hello.
Hello.
So this week we've been reading What You See Is What You Get, the autobiography of Sir Alan Sugar.
Sir Alan Lord Sugar.
What did you think of Alan Sugar before? Sorry, what did you think of Sir Alan Sugar? No, is he Lord or Sir? Is it the same thing? Is a Sir a Lord?
No, but he became a Lord. Now we've ruined the end.
I think people know. Do they know? They might not.
I tell you what, you asking me what I thought of him. I didn't know he was Lord, did I? No, I don't remember. I don't think I knew he was Lord Sugar. I knew he was Sir.
Is that different, Sir Sugar?
Yes, because he got knighted and then later he had to join the House of Lords so he could give impartial advice to the government.
All right. So he's Lord Sir Alan.
Yes.
Sir Lord Alan?
Hang on a minute. He is Lord Sugar of Clapton.
Clapton. So what did you think of him?
Well, I knew that he was a top businessman of Britain because he did the programme. What's that programme called? The Apprentice.
Yeah.
And I've probably seen one episode of that. So I knew he was like our Trump. This is before Trump was president. So he was like our big businessman of Britain. But I didn't know exactly what he did in business.
Okay.
So I had no idea he was the man behind Amstrad. Didn't know that. That's the biggest thing that I didn't know and probably should have known. But I didn't really know anything about him, honestly. Mm-hmm. How about you?
I knew Sir Lord Alan Sugar mostly from being on The Apprentice.
Yeah.
Kind of liking him initially and then not liking him. But this is before I read the book. It's just that reality TV thing where, okay, you think you have a business show to find a new employee or a new business partner or whatever, but actually it's a reality TV show and they're just invariably set up to make fools of people. And I do feel The Apprentice to serve up light entertainment. You know, what do they have? They have like 15 contestants every season. And I think they're probably serious about half of them. And the other half, I think, are just brought in to be made fun of. But I think the people who are brought in to make fun of think they're in with a serious chance of going into business with Alan Sugar, and I don't think they actually ever are. I think they've been drafted in for light entertainment, and I don't like that Alan Sugar is privy to that, and I feel it's almost like the Lord laughing at the peasants, if you know what I mean. Well,
so you know him entirely from reality TV, which is later in his life. Did you know anything else about him?
I knew he was a businessman who was in the field of technology, and I knew he had something to do with football. But generally, I kind of knew The Apprentice, that's it.
Yeah.
And there's so much more to know about him.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what this man has achieved.
Yeah. I find him to be, overall, a really ordinary man who's extraordinary at business. His drive and his brain for just finding new ideas and his confidence that just pushes them through and gets stuff done is amazing. But underneath, it's just a really ordinary family man. He's probably the only person we've read who got married to his first love and had children and they stayed together, and he's just kind of quite a normal person underneath it all.
I think essentially everybody else we've read has been a celebrity, and even Alan Sugar is arguably a celebrity.
Yeah,
these
but if you
days.
Take away The Apprentice, he's a businessman undercover.
So I'm very aware actually that reading this book was very different. It's a very different life story to all the others that we've read, and because it's more about him and his achievements rather than being worried about the man himself and how he's perceived. Because for the first 45, 50 years of his life, he was only in the public eye so far as that he was in possibly the business page of the newspaper.
Yeah, that's it. Within business world.
So he actually lived a very normal life until he was 50 or something.
Yeah.
But I'm also, what I love about this and his story and this man is how he literally came from nothing.
Yeah.
And he didn't have rich parents. He had nobody helping him out. Nobody gave him a business loan.
It's literally like starting with a penny you found on the street and investing it and ending up with millions of pennies. Billions. Yeah, it is that.
Yeah.
Okay, shall we start at the beginning?
Start at the beginning.
Okay. He came from a council estate in Upper Clapton Road, born in 1947. The youngest of four.
The youngest of four by some
Quite a lot, yeah.
12 years, I believe, between him and his closest sibling, which I think kind of illustrates the confidence of the young whippersnapper. Yeah, because they lived on a high floor of the flats, his mum would never let him out to play with the kids because she couldn't see him. So his whole first few years before he went to school, so his first 4 years of his life, he was only socialising with adults because of course his brothers and sisters were already teenagers.
It's a very Jewish family, which, although they're very Jewish, they skip a lot of things. They make it their own. They sound really nice, the whole family, really, really nice.
So then his first day at school, he went there and he's hanging out with kids his age, but he doesn't like it, and he runs all the way home. Back to back with a teacher chasing him. He hated it that much that he escaped school. But, that's just teething problems, isn't it? I laughed actually because this book, right, is long, isn't it?
It's really
and it's full of lots of unnecessary detail, right?
I loved all the detail.
Did you really?
I actually did, even though it was technological and I'm not technological. But I followed every single thing he said. I like the way he explains things to me so I can understand, because I think he is really straight down the line person. And he always says, look, I don't understand this. He has no problem with saying to anyone in any business meeting, I don't understand this, please, can you say it really simply? And then they like whether it's to do with shares and stocks or electronics or anything, he just says, please just lay it out for me so I understand. And that's how I feel this whole book is written.
I feel like this is how this whole book is written, but I'm like, oh my God, I don't need to know that.
Oh, I wanted to know everything.
Oh, that's so interesting, because what happened when he was at school is that quite early on, when he was young, the teachers considered that he was a good speaker and stuff, and they chose him to show the parents around at an open day. And he actually says, this is like on the 5th page of the book, and I had to laugh. He says, knowing me, I imagine I was offering too much detail and maybe repeating myself, especially if I thought the audience wasn't grasping what I was saying.
Oh, right.
And it's that's the whole
book. That's how you think of the whole... Well, he's quite right, because I wouldn't always be grasping it, but by the end of like that chapter on electronic VCRs with PCR, blah, 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 I understood it, which actually amazed me. I thought this would all go over my head.
But what's amazing is that the 5-year-old Alan Sugar
is already
is also the 50. He's already that person. And the very fact that he was chosen by the teachers to talk to the parents, that's a form of sales skill,
it is sales.
Isn't it? And they chose him to kind of sell the school to the parents. So from a very early age, it's just in him.
He's a Sir Lord Sugar at age 5.
Yeah, he is. In the same way, now we've only read pop stars and actors before, and for example Mariah Carey and Michael Jackson, their talent was spotted like as a 3-4-year-old. They were already that person.
Right. Same as
Alan
him.
Sugar is that person at a very young age. It's just that his talent is business and sales.
It was hard to quantify at that point what he was going to be,
but it was there. It was there. So he loved school, little school, primary school. He was just with his mates and having a great time. But then when he went to secondary school at the age of 11, things changed for him, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. He heard Jewish racism for the first time in his life, which totally shocked him, because he had no idea that anyone thought anything bad of anybody at that point. And
he also, he grew up on an estate and everybody's just friends together, and although he's aware he's Jewish, he doesn't think it's something that people would get teased about or ostracised for. But here he is, and it was a real kind of punch in the gut, really, to hear that on his first day of secondary school. But there are other Jewish kids there. And Alan admits that he doesn't necessarily look Jewish, so he's not the target of a lot of anti-Semitism, but he can see it happening to other people. But then...
there was a Jewish holiday.
During the school week.
Yes, so then he took the day off.
And then when he came back, everybody knew he was a Jew.
Yeah, which really changed his life for him. It put him in a different bracket and ostracised him somewhat.
It really did. But he's having a good time out of school, right? Because he's already started a-dealin.
Right? It's amazing how soon. He doesn't have any money, his family aren't rich, and he's always looking for opportunities. And he's so clever. And he sees that somebody is buying woolen material at a certain price. The Rag and Bone Man.
Yeah.
And then he finds another place, a fabric manufacturers who are throwing out material. The little light bulb goes off.
Yeah. I think the reason he's there and he sees that material being thrown out is because he's already washing cars for money, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
And he's washing the car of the boss of this factory, and then he spots two bags of
getting chucked out. Yeah,
fabric
seems
scraps.
to me he's always out and about though.
Yeah.
He's always going to find opportunities because he's not sitting at home doing nothing. He's out and about.
But he's only like
things.
9 or 10 at this point.
Yeah,
he's already
he's
switched.
really young. Puts 2 and 2 together and sells the fabric. He asks, "Can I have this fabric for nothing?" Yeah. Takes it to the other place and sells it, and then he realises the value. So the next week goes, "Haha, you were having a laugh. I'm charging 5 times more." And he starts making some money, and his dad immediately gets suspicious.
Yes.
Because his dad's just an ordinary, hard-working man and can't understand how his son's already making half his weekly wage, age 9 or whatever. Yeah. He sees opportunities, doesn't he? That's what he does.
And then how soon is it after that he's then they're digging up to the road to relay the road?
Yeah.
Is that
it's around that same time? Yeah.
So he is watching the workmen dig up the road, and what happened, old roads in London were underlaid with blocks of wood, and they were just being thrown away because the new tarmac, you don't need wood underneath it anymore.
But they still had the old tarmac sort of bits all sort of encrusted into it.
Yeah, so Alan Sugar saw that, all that scrap wood, and thought, I can take that. No, he'd noticed in a shop that they were selling bundles of firewood, kindling, right?
Fire lighting sticks.
Yeah, and so he then saw this wood being torn up from the road, asked if he could have it, and chopped it up into smaller bits and was selling it.
Yeah, and the little bits of tar sparked up even better than normal wood. Yeah, so they were
really flammable.
So it's a very popular product.
Yeah, and he was selling them to shops who were taking them off him.
Yeah, in bundles, and he was making a bundle.
He was making a bundle, but there was so much of this wood. Quite soon, the bigger boys on the estate realised what he was up to, and they basically muscled him out of it.
Yeah, which is another lesson.
It is a lesson.
An early lesson to him in business, because you actually have to keep it secret. Otherwise, people will come in. Yeah.
And also get in there first and know that somebody else is going to come in after you. If you're a success, somebody's going to copy what you're doing. And by that point, you have to be on to the next thing.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, he was doing that at 10 years old.
Yeah. Wow. Well, he was learning that lesson
Yes, he was learning
age.
that at 10 years old.
Yeah. Everything's a lesson to him at this point, isn't it? He learns so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then he's working at Ridley Road Market in Dalston. And he's learning a lot about...
on a market stall.
Yeah, he's starting to learn the verbal aspect of sales. So
getting his patter down.
Yeah, and also try not selling one thing at a time, but try stacking it all up. Here, look, I've got a heap of this. Sell all of that for a £5.
Yeah. So even then, like we say, he was learning from doing the wood and the fabric scraps and stuff, but even
learning the business
on top of
the
that,
banter.
Yeah, he was getting himself into situations where he was learning the sales and stuff.
Yeah, he's learning the psychology of your customer.
Yes.
Of what they see as a bargain and what will make them part with their cash.
Yeah.
Thinking they're getting a deal.
So he's really sort of rocketing along, but at school, so his friends at school, because people have found out he's a Jew and he's feeling a bit ostracised. When Jewish boys are 13, they get the bar mitzvah.
13.
Now his family didn't have any money, which is extraordinary to think about considering he's a billionaire now.
Yeah.
So they couldn't afford to have a bar mitzvah for him, so they had a quiet one at home. But unfortunately, all of his Jewish friends knew he had one, and they just assumed they weren't invited, which wasn't true. It's just that there wasn't, essentially, he didn't have one. He tried to explain to them, we didn't have one, they wouldn't buy it. Nope. And they ostracised him. So from the age of 13, it hit him so hard, like a double whammy after the people at school bullying him for being Jewish, and now his Jewish friends didn't want him. He went into a serious depression,
became a recluse, age 13 in 1960, and didn't really talk to anyone for 2 years.
2 years.
To the point where all his older sisters and brothers were really worried about him. His parents were worried. They were trying to set him up with friends and get him out, and he just... 2 years. In that time, he got a job in a chemist, so he's interacting with adults at the weekend. He was doing business. And it's that brilliant thing where the discarded film canisters, he was collecting them. Well, he saw that there were a load of empty cartridges and wondered if anyone used them for anything. The man said they didn't. And then he was out and about again, and he'd gone to some army surplus place and found 3 giant cinema-sized reels of unused film, undeveloped film.
Yeah.
And he did a deal and actually paid quite a lot for them. Oh, he was getting into photography then as well, because he'd bought his first camera. He bought these reels for fair amount of money.
Yeah.
And he said he had to do it under his bed.
Yeah, because you can't expose the
You
film.
can't expose them, and he didn't want anyone to know who's doing it. So he's under his bed at night, under his covers, counting off what he considered to probably be about 36 things that ended up being more like 50, which is why they were so popular, and rolling them into these little canisters and then selling them mostly at school at a discount rate. I think there was some kid at school whose dad worked for Fuji or something who was really showing off giving discount stuff at school, but he undercut him and became more popular.
And another thing he learnt about sales is that kid then said, oh, Sugar's film is secondhand, it's no good, it's overexposed. So Sugar then offered a money back guarantee.
Yeah.
So then people wanted his film, and it turns out there was nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he turned like 50 quid into like 10 times that much money.
Yeah.
He was a born entrepreneur, wasn't
he?
he?
Really was born to be Alan Sugar.
Yeah, and just homey, like you say, not just seeing that film, but also seeing the canisters, putting 2 and 2 together, thinking I can divvy that up and turn it into money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then even at that age, he started using his camera to photograph weddings and bar mitzvahs, and he photographed the school sports race.
Yeah, and he was selling people prints and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He'd printed them overnight, hadn't he? And he'd actually made a little darkroom by that point at home. Printed them overnight and put them on the board.
He had to lie to his dad about how he paid for the camera because he bought it outright.
Yeah.
Because he'd been making money and working in the chemist. But because his dad already got very suspicious. But I think there's that pride thing as well. When you are a working man making about £8 a week and your teenage son is almost earning more money than you.
Yeah.
So Alan Sugar was very sensitive to that. And he said that he bought the camera in installments and he still earned a lot of money on it. Actually, he hadn't. He'd bought it.
Yeah.
Because already he was earning decent money.
Yeah, that's right.
And using that money to make more money, buying a camera, but not just buying a camera to have a camera, but buying a camera to make more money.
Probably bought the camera from the sticks he was selling. Probably saved some of that. I mean, everything leads to the next thing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's great.
But also when he was like being a recluse in his bedroom, he also was buying like crystal radio kits and getting into technology and building radios himself.
Yeah, he was down Tottenham Court Road every spare minute, wasn't he, buying parts?
Yeah.
So he actually got to know electrical products and how they work.
Yeah, so he
self-taught.
He wasn't wasting time being in his bedroom. Rather like Morrissey, who would have been sat in his room writing his lyrics and stuff.
Yeah, listening to music and absorbing everything.
Alan Sugar was getting into technology and photography and becoming the man he was going to be. Well, was already the man, but already doing it.
It's weird though, isn't it? Because you might want to be a pop star, but you don't know you want to be Alan Sugar.
Yeah.
Even if you are Alan Sugar.
Yeah. When Alan Sugar left school, he wanted to go and work for IBM, and he took the aptitude test, and he failed.
That's right.
30 years later, he owns the IBM building in London. It's worth £117 million. Isn't that amazing?
Yes. So you know where you can stick your aptitude test. But he left school at 16 because he knew he wanted to earn money.
And his family, I think, were a bit upset about that because did he start his A-levels or something? And I think they were quite disappointed that he decided, back in those days, if getting A-levels kind of meant you would get a better paid career. But Sugar was just so ready to go out and actually get a job and start earning. And what did he do straight after school? Was that the...
He's a clerical officer at the Ministry of Education.
Mm-hmm. Working with data and stuff and spreadsheets.
And he very quickly excelled in that. And
excelled!
Oh my God!
That's like a sugarism.
And he sorted the whole business out and had people looking up to him and asking him how to do stuff within 2 weeks.
Yeah, so as a 16-year-old, he was above people a few years older.
Yeah.
And on a different pay grade, I think.
Yeah.
But then a problem happened, right? And I think it was new technology for everyone. Because what we're talking about here, the late 60s, early 70s?
So, technology. Be 63, early 60s.
Okay, so this really early technology in the Ministry of Defence, Ministry of Education. But he could understand it. So when these older people, the technology was new to them, were getting problems, Sugar was sorting them out. So he became very valuable in that office.
He's in at the start, isn't he?
Yeah.
He keeps moving on.
Because ultimately it's not what he
it's not his
wants
goal
to do.
So then he's a trainee cost accountant manufacturers. Then, anyways, by 17, he's a travelling salesman for Roebuck
for an electrical company.
Electricals, yeah.
Which is kind of like what he should.
That's
the fact
right
that he's
fit.
only 17 is kind of like he did get there quite quickly, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, of course, if you do need to work, so he got the first job that was available to him, and he thrived at it. But he quite quickly found the job that fit him.
Yeah,
being an electrical salesman out the back of a van, right?
Yeah. And selling tape recorders and record players. And, but even then, Roebuck Electricals, it's amazing how later in the book he comes back to that it's networking. There's all these people help him along the way, and then he helps them back. And he's
one thing that I do find about this book is like he names literally everyone.
Yeah.
First name and surname.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, okay, I don't need to know the name of your cleaner. But like literally everyone gets a name check, which is kind of like really endearing. It's like he's forgetting no one who was there on his upward road to success.
That's true.
Or the people that worked against him. He names those too.
Yes.
But there are a lot of names in this book. Yeah, I thought it was really sweet actually how he literally name checked everyone. But so with Roebuck Electrical, so he was selling to smaller shops, a tape deck here and a record player there.
Literally going around London mostly, wasn't it?
Yeah. Now, is this where he infiltrated, was it Comet?
Yes.
Or Curry? It was Comet, wasn't it?
Yes. He targeted Curry's.
Curry's.
Because he realised that if he actually went to those bigger branches and schmoozed the managers, they would take more.
Yeah. He got the head honcho of Curry's on the phone.
Yeah.
And was selling them to him. And he had a conversation with him, and he said, the head honcho of Curry said, I'm not going to order any, but I give you permission to go into each of my stores, and the managers can choose to order directly from you if they want. And they did, because a lot of those Curry's store managers, their hands were tied. They couldn't order independently. But because Alan Sugar had phoned the head honcho, he gave him permission to go into the Curry stores, and it gave the managers permission to buy from him. Yeah. That's quite extraordinary.
Yeah, it's really clever.
And Alan Sugar was like 17.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he was working on commission, so he was really motivated to sell a lot.
Really motivated, but his boss at Roebuck then stiffed him on the
stiffed and diddled him.
He stiffed and diddled him on the commission, because he said, oh, well, if you're talking about Curry's and they're going to order more, in which case your commission is going to come down.
Yeah, it's not fair.
It's not fair.
No.
It's not fair. He got them into Curry's.
Yes, but this man ain't taking no shit. So he left. Yeah.
Good for him.
Rightly so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good, because who's laughing now?
Who's laughing now? But he got a very similar job, right? Straight away with another electrical company, and basically did kind of the same thing.
Yeah. By now he's completely earning more than his dad, which is nuts, but great, because it all works out. But then he gets this sideline in old TVs. Where did he get those old TVs from?
No, again, just from going around as a travelling sales rep.
On his route.
He sees them in a shop. He sees a pile of old TVs.
That they don't know how to fix, and they don't know what to do with them, and they're probably going to junk them.
Yeah, and he says, how much do you want for them? And I think they said, just take them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he loaded his van up with old broken TVs.
And takes them to his parents' small flat and clap them. I think they had a spare room at that point.
Yeah, they did. And then he got a friend of his to come and recondition them and make them work again. Malcolm. And they had a nice little sideline in refurbishing second-hand TVs.
Yeah, they really did. But as often happens with these ambitious people can't keep up with them. So Malcolm couldn't keep up.
But he also didn't share the ambition. He didn't want to work extra hours and stuff.
That's true. Whereas Alan would give everything to it. Malcolm wanted to go home and have dinner and watch telly.
Yeah, they're different people.
Different drive.
Different priorities.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
But frustratingly for Alan, he couldn't mend the TVs. He was relying on him. And they couldn't keep up. I just get the frustration of that. Yeah, it's like you want to go solo because your band's never turning up for rehearsal. Yeah. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
But anyway, he made a mint.
A mint.
At that point, he was making £30 to £40 a week, which was the equivalent of today about £2,000.
That's incredible.
Yeah, a week. He was 17. Wow. Well, he might be 18 by now.
Yeah.
A week?
Yeah.
Amazing. God knows how his dad felt at that point. But around that time, he decides to work for himself, ditches it all in. Because he's making more money from his TV scheme. And that's when he forms his own company.
And what's the company called?
Amstrad.
St Alan Sugar.
Penny dropped in my brain when I read that. I was like, what? Alan, is it Michael or Mark?
Michael, I think.
Alan Michael Sugar Trading Company. Amstrad. Oh my God. Amazing, because I've seen that on stuff my whole life and never knew.
You never knew.
Never connected it.
I do.
Yeah.
I was interested, and I'm looking for one now. I've got an alert set on eBay. Yeah. Amstrad's first product that was stamped with the Amstrad name was a cigarette lighter.
Yes.
I'd love to have one. They don't exist. I mean, people threw away cigarette lighters, right? I think he had 100 made. And, imagine if you had one. The very first product that Amstrad... That would be so cool to have that.
Well, I'm glad you think that's cool.
No, I think it should be in the British Museum.
That's probably where you'll find one.
Oh, I'm going to go and look. So his mate can't keep up or doesn't want to keep up with refurbishing the second-hand TVs, right? And at this point, they're taking over his mum's flat, so she's a bit annoyed. Plus, he's taking customers to his mum's flat, which she's not keen on. The house.
There's people in and out of the house all the time.
Yeah.
So they get a premises. That's their first premises, which is in Clerkenwell, and gets his first employee, his dad.
I actually thought this was quite a turning point in his dad's life.
Yeah.
Because his dad is of that generation who got a job after school and stayed in it for the whole life.
You'd never dare leave because you're the breadwinner for the family.
And nobody left, to the point that I think his dad was like 55. And when he left, like literally nobody could believe, his workmates could not believe he was leaving because like literally nobody had ever left
You
before.
don't get divorced, you don't leave your job.
Yeah, you stay there till you retire.
Yeah.
And he's leaving to go and work for his son who's opened a showroom.
Taking
and he could give him more money a week than he could ever earn at the factory anyway.
By loads.
By the age of like 20. Is he 20 at this point?
Is he even 20? He's still really young.
He's still really young.
Yeah.
And he's employing his dad.
It's brilliant. It's such a new lease of life for his dad. It's a lovely relationship. They have to obviously bicker a bit, but it's
they're a really strong family values there, and they obviously all care for each other. And it's nice to read a biography actually where the family unit is tight.
It really is. And by the way, in the meantime, when he's about 17 with his first travelling salesman car, it's very important if you want to woo a girl.
Oh, right, for sure.
He meets his wife.
Anne?
Yeah, in a club that he's gone to with his other mate who meets his wife in there, and they're all mates together. And it's a very tentative, quiet, private, shy relationship, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
It's not really going anywhere.
Oh, but
it hasn't dawned on him. The next step hasn't dawned on him because he's just thinking about business.
And her dad doesn't want Alan Sugar for his daughter.
No.
And in fact, he actively tries to replace him. And actually, Alan Sugar, because he's so laid back about the relationship and doesn't quite know what he should be doing, it almost happens without him.
Yeah.
How does he find out about that? Somebody said, hey,
I think it was Anne's sibling. Warned him, said, my dad's sending around a prospective husband, you better go and, go and turn up.
Yeah, Alan got right in there. And
they're like, who are you? I'm her boyfriend. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then he proposed to her quite quickly.
The dad said he wasn't Jewish enough or wasn't making enough money.
It's because he had a Cockney accent. He was a proper, not a ruffian, but he wasn't well spoken enough.
But also her dad was really Jewish, really strict. And they weren't that strict, to be fair.
Yeah.
And also, the sibling said, look, you've been going out with her for 2 years plus. You've never even taken her home to meet your parents.
Wow.
And he said, it never even crossed my mind because no one came round to my house because I was a bit embarrassed about it.
Right. Oh.
So he invited her round. He invited his friends round for the first time ever. It just sort of snapped him out of it somehow.
I do have to say, though, it's kind of like I get throughout his whole life that his wife and his family were never really at the forefront of his mind.
No.
The business always seemed to...
it's completely focused.
If you sat him down and said to him, what do you love most in your life? He would have instinctively said, my wife and kids.
Yeah.
But in what he did, his actions, he was so consumed and focused on his work. They basically came second place their whole life.
They did, yes. But from the sound of it, you'd have to talk to her. But I think they had enough family time, especially for those days, that made it acceptable.
Yeah.
And also she seemed to quite enjoy the money increasingly.
Yeah, but nice also I get that she was the perfect wife for him and that she just handled him perfectly.
Yes.
But also, you know what? if the one criticism of him not spending enough time with his wife and family, he's actually at work earning money. He's not having affairs and stuff. He's not down the pub.
No.
Actually, he's having an affair with his business.
Yeah, which he always has.
Yeah.
And that is who he is.
Yeah. I mean, can you fault that? Yeah, probably. You're not spending enough time with your family.
Wouldn't.
But at the same time...
I get it. The only thing I would fault is that he always made sure weekends were for family. Up to the point where he decided to get his flying licence and spent all the weekend
that's a bit naughty.
flying. That's the only thing I would say, hang on, no, you don't. That's a compromise you could maybe have made there.
Yeah.
Because you had little kids growing up and...
Yeah.
Now you don't need to fly.
You don't need to fly.
No, you've got everything else, come on.
But again, that's kind of like you're doing that for you and your kids are tagging along.
Yeah.
Do something for your kids.
Yeah. That'd be my only criticism, honestly. The rest
your
of it,
only
I think,
criticism?
Yeah, honestly, because I love how focused he is on business.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. I really get his drive, and I find him really likeable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
I mean, I don't want to be his wife, but then that's my choice.
So he's got a premises with a stock room and a showroom, and his dad is working for him. Now, also on his travels, and he's going into hi-fi shops selling stuff, he notices... Because we're the 1969, 1970s, the hi-fi is becoming a thing.
Yeah.
And people are buying them to have in their front rooms. But what Alan Sugar notices is not necessarily the hi-fi, but the cabinet that it's in.
Yes.
Now, anybody listening who had a hi-fi in the 1970s, I can remember it, my mum's distinctly. It came kind of like in a teak cabinet with a plastic lid that used to go over the record player. He thought about selling them, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he used East End cabinet makers.
Hey, he was buying the cabinets first, right?
Yeah.
And somebody was charging him, I can't remember how much.
Oh, yeah.
Like £3 or something for each cabinet and lid.
Yes, that's right.
And then he figured out quite quickly that he should be making them.
Yeah, so he found East End cabinet makers who would make them for him. Might even have been his father-in-law's brother or something.
Was.
And then it was the plastic covers they needed making. He found some plastic moulders in the East End and got them to make them for
pennies.
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Whereas before they were exported from Japan or something. Denmark?
They were imported from Denmark, and he was when he was buying them from the wholesaler, they were charging him like £3 a unit, which obviously in 1970 was a lot more than it sounds.
Yeah.
And then he figured out with the East End cabinet makers and an injection moulded lid, he was getting the whole thing for less than half that money.
Oh, way less. Oh, that's right. He got the idea from looking at a plastic moulded butter dish.
That's right. Yeah, injection moulding.
I can do this.
Yeah. Again, he's finding solutions.
Yes, he's always looking, he's always
everywhere.
Thinking. Which is why you can't be thinking about your kids. You've got to be thinking about business. Your life would have just passed him by.
Why do you want a wife and kids?
Me?
Yeah, you. No, but like if you're Alan Sugar.
Yeah.
And you're totally focused on your business, why do you want a wife and kids?
Well, it's brilliant because later on he uses his son as a business colleague.
So you're
and he keeps it in the family. Of course you want a wife and kids.
So you're just giving birth to people to take over your business when you're older. Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
It's a brilliant idea.
But these cabinets are his first major success, right?
Yeah. I
mean, he's selling thousands of them.
Yeah, he really takes off at this point and makes a lot of money.
Do you know how much?
$6,000 a month, I wrote down.
Wow. And he was selling them, presumably, for not that much. So he's shifting a huge number if he's making £6,000 a month.
Yeah.
Well, it was a hi-fi boom. People were making the hi-fis. Few people were making the cabinets. It was such a good idea.
Putting them together.
Such a good idea.
Yeah. Right, then he decides to make the amplifiers.
So he actually goes in to making the actual... Because this is... When we think about a hi-fi now, if there's any kids listening, and when I say kids, I mean people under 40, you think of a hi-fi as a complete unit. Yeah. But back in the day, at the beginning, you would have a separate record player, a separate tape deck, a separate tuner for your radio, and then you would also need an amplifier that all that plugged into to take it to the speakers. Yeah. So it was like 4 separate pieces.
Yeah. All with plugs and wires.
All with plugs and wires. And Alan Sugar started off by making an amplifier unit. it.
He says his amplifiers weren't that great quality.
Well, no, they weren't, but he'd already committed to making them. He'd
Yeah.
employed 20 staff in his
Yeah.
premises, and they'd already bought the components. They were good enough. They just weren't good enough to be the market leader. I think he said if you were listening to classical music, you wouldn't hear the triangle or the double bass.
Yeah.
But if you were just listening to normal music, they
Yeah.
were perfectly fine.
Yeah.
They just weren't a brilliant. But it was his first thing. And I think that's fine.
true.
So he was committed at that point. They figured out they weren't great, but he'd already committed to like making 2,000. And so they did.
Yeah.
And he sold them.
Yeah.
And then the next time they make them better the next time they make them, right?
Yeah. By the way, at this point, they moved to Ridley Road, Dalston Market, which is still there to this day. 4,000 square feet factory space.
Amazing.
And when I was there recently, I didn't know Alan Sugar started his business there. And now I do. It's
Now you
amazed
do.
me.
You can bore people with that fact every time you walk past it.
Yeah. So this was their thing, is they'd undercut on price for the same products that other people were making to generate a mass market. He said up to that point, the industry was selling hi-fi systems to richer people at a rich price, even though the market was huge. He wasn't interested in that. He wanted to sell masses at a much cheaper price and make his money that way by quantity.
Make it affordable to everyone.
Affordable and knock it out. That was his way in.
That was his unique selling point.
Yeah, it was.
Quality
Yeah.
goods at knockdown prices.
Yeah, pile them high, sell them cheap.
There
And
you
that's what he learned from that market stall.
Yes, there you
Yeah,
go.
good, isn't it?
It
And
is
what
good.
it literally affected is all of our lives, because it meant that all of us, ordinary people, had hi-fi systems at
In our
home.
house, yeah.
Which, if it actually wasn't for Alan Sugar coming in and doing that, we would never have grown up with.
We'd have just had
Ordinary record
a
players
wireless
and things.
radio.
Oh, actually then affected record sales, so
Yeah.
it wasn't just the radio people listened to, which affects charts, which affects... I never thought of that until now.
Yeah.
That's quite nuts, isn't it, if you think
Yeah.
of it like that?
Alan Sugar is responsible for lots of things happening.
Changing.
Actually.
Massive changes, yeah.
But I think the changes were happening, but he brought them to the mass market and made them affordable and made them widespread.
He also did it incredibly fast. Every single idea from inception to shop was so fast that he moved us from the 60s through the 70s, the 80s at a massive rate of change.
The reason he could do that, I think, is because he got in so quickly that he was approaching the manufacturers and stuff to make the stuff before the stuff really took off.
Yeah, that's
so by the time
right.
other people were cottoning onto it and the factories and manufacturers were flooded with orders, so you had to wait months.
Yeah.
Because he was getting in there first before other people were asking about it. He could get the whole first wave pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But that's because he's really switched on.
Yeah.
And a marketing genius.
And he pushed everything so hard. If he was anyone else biologically, he would have died of a heart attack.
Yeah.
Really young, because it's extremely stressful what he put himself through. What happened next?
So he kind of gets in with, like Comet and Curry's. Now, they would always take out full-page adverts in the newspapers, and they would have a hi-fi television from different manufacturers. When Sugar got Amstrad in with Comet, they would advertise, and Alan Sugar always made sure that his price was just a little bit lower than all the others. And when he then had proved himself to Curry's and Dixon's and Comet, his products were being on those full page adverts. So it was literally flying off the shelves at that point. He was soon shifting those hi-fi cabinets, now getting into the hi-fi separates. Things are really moving. I mean, he's gone from 1 employee to 20 employees. And I think at this point in the early 70s, he's kind of up to 50 or 200, I don't know. But he's doing very well for himself at this point.
Oh, no, I was going to say another really key angle that he had was whenever he brought out a product, he always brought out a slightly fancier one. So if you want this product, like the hi-fi thing, you can also have one with remote control and flashing lights.
Or with Dolby sound.
And he said almost everyone went for the more expensive one. So he always offered a choice. And it was £100 more, and people volunteered the money for the slightly fancier.
That's learnt from the market as well, isn't it? It's just like the little upsale. And you're right, manufacturing costs are virtually the same. But doing that
give
cheaper
people a choice.
Unit, give them the choice, make one a little bit more sexy. But £100 more, they always go for the more expensive one.
Great businessman.
Good marketing tip there for any budding entrepreneurs listening.
How can I make that work for me?
Alan Sugar takes a trip to Japan. So he's already got sights set on global business. And he's 24. To the fact that when he goes to Japan, everybody thinks that Alan Sugar is his dad and he sent his son to do the business.
They can't believe it's him who they've been on the phone to all this time as well. But the really cool thing that changed him was this street of electrical shops. It's got a name, I didn't write it down. And
I imagine it's paradise for him.
Yeah, it must be.
Like a kid going to a fairground. Yes. Massive shops all down the street full of the latest technology.
Yeah.
And he goes in there and he sees and picks out the best ideas and turns them into his own. So he's in Japan kind of making business contacts and sourcing stuff. Yeah. And then also he's had this weird message from Nigeria. So he doesn't take it seriously because these people are asking for hi-fi equipment. Chats with this guy and then he says, well, how many do you want? And he says, well, 2. And Alan Sugar's like, oh, it's just not worth it. So he hangs the phone up. And then a bit later, the guy says to him, oh, I haven't received my hi-fi units. And he's, well, no, because it's 2. It's just not worth doing it. Anyway, then this guy orders like 500.
He's trying to say they were just samples.
They were just samples that they wanted.
Yeah.
So while Alan Sugar is in Japan, just making business contacts and looking around, he then puts an order in for like 500 record players, 500 amplifiers, and it was just such a weird quirk of fate because in Nigeria, like the civil service gave each of their workers a windfall of like £200, and they all wanted to buy into the hi-fi boom, and they just so happened to call Alan Sugar. Alan Sugar thinks that they probably called 4 or 5 other companies first, and everybody thought it was a joke because you just didn't deal with Nigeria in those days.
He did. The price he made up was a joke price to get rid of him. That's why it was so high.
Yes. And he paid it.
He paid it.
But then Alan Sugar said to him, okay, we can do this, but I need the money in my account before I do it. So he did, and he got the money. And then he's over in Japan, and all of a sudden he says to the Japanese people, right, I want 500 of this, 500 of that. And they're like, what? So they think he's having a joke. Anyway, the whole thing is kosher, all goes through. And in 1975, little Alan Sugar makes £50,000 off that one deal. And that is his first serious windfall that really seriously sets him up to go massive. Let's just jump forward a little bit. Amstrad goes public at a value of £2 million.
It's at 25%. Public flotation. So 25% is put on the market.
Wow.
I think that's the right phrase because he didn't know anything about it either.
Right,
which is why it was really great how he said, what you're talking about, public flotation, what does this mean? And they spell it out bit by bit.
Oh, hang on. I think,
all the stocks and shares.
Sorry, the company isn't worth $2 million. I think he gets $2 million in his bank account.
He gets $2 million, yeah.
Wow.
From the selling of the stocks and shares.
Yeah, and I think he takes it home and shows his wife and she's just not impressed.
Yeah, I know. It's really nice, actually, that she's very normal.
But so things really speed up now. I mean, he's so ahead of the game anyway. But, we just were talking about hi-fi. So the hi-fi boom was separates, i.e. the record player, tape deck, amplifier. Yeah. But then he soon got the idea because he was looking at the back because his cabinets were housing all of the wires. A big spaghetti of wires. And so he just then has the idea.
Yeah. Can we put it all into one
What if it
box?
was all in one unit and it just needed one
I mean, it seems so obvious. But
so now, because that's what we used to.
Yeah.
But Alan Sugar was the one who said, hey, let's make this one unit.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous it ever used to be anything other than one
And he always gets these things and he takes them apart and looks inside going, that's doable.
Yeah.
He's not frightened by what he sees inside
things. That's him
things.
being 15 stuck in his bedroom
That's
again,
right.
making
exactly
the little crystal radio.
Yeah. So he does have that basic knowledge.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Also in Taiwan, he discovers that there's such a thing as vinyl wood grain. So you can make really cheap cabinets out of chipboard and slap some vinyl. Now, a lot of people would be cringing now going, it's his fault, is it?
Yeah,
Because you might say that sort of really
tacky.
It's kind of a cheap, tacky.
But everything was in the 1970s.
And it, the cost went right down at that point.
Yeah, they did.
Wood and stuff.
And it made him a lot of money again.
Yeah.
Because he's always one step ahead.
There will be Greenpeace and Friends of the Earth people who, to them, he is the
he is anyway.
Enemy.
Of course, not just because of the vinyl cabinets,
because
of every single technological
throwaway.
Blame it all on Alan Sugar.
I have to just throw that in there. So I'm not unaware that this is the beginning of the cheapening, and you can see that this is where a lot of our problems started, actually.
Definitely. It's like IKEA now. When people move flat, because like antiques and stuff, nobody wants the nice old cabinets and stuff anymore because they're quite cumbersome, and when you move house, they're big and you have to take them them. Lots of young people now buy their stuff from IKEA, and it's so cheap that when they move house, they just leave it behind and they'll go and buy some more because it's cheaper than taking
People
it
leave
with
their
them.
tents at campsites now. Yeah. I know. Whoever invented the disposable tent.
Yeah,
has
there
a
you
lot to
go.
answer for.
Everybody
But
has
yeah,
a lot to answer
that's
for.
in the name of progress. But anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in there because
Throw it in.
things are getting cheaper and cheaper by the minute.
But you could also argue that by making 4 hi-fi separates into one unit, actually Alan Sugar is making things more ecologically sound.
Yeah, not on purpose, but yes.
Yeah, that's not...
Anyway, this is just all what happened.
So he's going toing and froing from Japan, and one of the times he's there, he sees
the double cassette recorder.
Yeah, which is just a trade thing, right? That's not there for mass consumption.
It was for professional recording equipment for recording studios.
But that triggers something in his brain.
Yeah.
I could put that in my new hi-fi,
Yeah.
a double cassette deck.
Yeah.
And he does.
And the genius of it is the advertising says, it is illegal to copy copyrighted material. This machine should only be used to copy material you have generated yourself. Ha! So by saying what you can't do, he's also said what you can do.
You can do.
So everybody knows they can then copy tapes that you get from, let's say, the library, that you can put a bit of sellotape over and copy your favourite albums and then take them back.
You sound like you've done it before.
I don't know what. But it's absolutely brilliant. And everyone did it at school, didn't they? Tape each other's albums and,
for sure.
You can make little sleeves for them yourself and stuff.
Alan Sugar made piracy possible.
Yes, he did, and changed our lives. Had so many more albums than I could have ever afforded.
Yeah.
It's great, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Thanks, Alan.
Yeah, so of course, he's constantly, he's not just getting one product and sticking with it.
Yeah, and then when it fails, he
evolving.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's finding new things
Always
to
evolving.
add to it, or finding the next big thing, like the CB radio.
CB radios comes and goes.
Yeah, did you have one?
No.
I did. I just had a little handheld
I wish I
one.
had.
2 channels,
It
that's
was really
all.
fun.
So it was really good fun.
Yeah, we just had, paper cups and string.
But they Amstrad as well.
Yeah.
But I tell you, another thing that he's really good at is not just getting the next big thing, it's knowing when to stop it.
Yes, that's absolutely
CB
right.
radio came and went so quickly.
Yeah, he flogged it off, didn't he, before everyone else had realised.
Yeah, and also because he's always at the beginning, he's predicting what's going to be the next big thing.
Yeah.
Because he gets in early, he can pull out early. And almost like with the CB radios, he's already pulling his stuff out while the other manufacturers are just getting it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's really niche. Once all the CB radio type people have got one, that's it.
Yeah.
Move on. And the next thing you got into was VCRs.
Amazing.
And then computers with a built-in screen, a keyboard, cassette.
Again, all one unit.
Is one unit and a monitor, because he said up to then computers have been plugged into your TV. So if you want to play video games,
The TV in the living room.
you had to plug the computer into your TV and upload it on there, so your mum and dad can watch telly whilst the kids were on the computer.
Yeah, so he made an affordable unit with a TV
With a
screen so it could be in the kids' bedroom.
He really changed our lives.
And he made one with a cassette player built in
within it
as well.
But it's really good. He got so far with computers before he realised they hadn't have enough games to play on it, and then he had to actually commission games to be made.
Yeah,
otherwise, no one
software.
wanted the computers.
And again, he upsold it because I think he did a black and white one for £199.
That's
And if
right.
you want a colour monitor, you get £299. Well, everybody wants a
Yes.
colour one. Yeah, upselling again. So clever. And
Yeah.
his computers were being sold around the world. So actually, what we're missing out is that the company is growing exponentially now because every product he brings out, and he's getting into Europe. And Germany and Spain are buying 50,000 units. And I think America, he actually said that he didn't want his computers to go to America because he didn't think they would sell there. Yeah. They still bought them, but he was right, they didn't sell.
And he told him.
And then, weirdly, it feels like a backward step from a computer, but he also created the word processor.
Yeah.
Because at that point, everybody was still using typewriters.
Yeah.
And that was massive because up until then, businesses were only using them. Again, with the computer, I think at the point the computers were something like £2,000, and I think the word processors, because only businesses were using them, I think they might have been £4,000. And then Alan always does these launches where he gets everybody into a conference room and they show the new product, and the last thing he does is put the price up. Yeah. And it's like the word processor is £299. It's just like, how can you do it for this price? Yeah. And even though you can do it for this price, why do you do it for this price? Because you could make so much more money.
Yeah, mass sales.
And he's like, well, I know how much the thing costs. And even if you're selling it for
right.
£4,000, it still costs the same amount to manufacture. Yeah, but he's doing it with the goal of selling so many
millions.
More. Yeah, and he does.
Thus changing all of our lives again.
Yeah.
Constantly
amazing. Changing all of our lives.
Yeah. And in 1986, his company is worth 1.2 billion in 86.
Incredible.
It's mind-boggling.
So look, he's had massive success, but at some point his fortunes do change, where a lot of the computers...
Oh, it was those chips. It was the rogue chips.
So
This is bad.
It's really bad.
I mean, something bad has to happen to him, to be honest. At this point.
Well, I don't know why.
In any story,
it's
there's
true.
dark chapters.
Yeah, and there are a few dark chapters now.
But this is just, the new Intel PC that he invented, they got hard disk drives supplied by two different companies.
I know, that was...
And the only reason it was two, because they needed them so fast.
Yeah.
So Seagate and Western Digital. And by total chance, they both supplied them with faulty disk drives, because if one had and not the other, they'd know their
computer was all right.
But because both had, they thought it was the computer that was wrong, so they invested everything in trying to fix the computer, and they had a deadline, and it really almost sank the entire company.
Well, they couldn't get to the bottom of it because there was nothing wrong with the computer, but because both hard drives didn't work, anybody would assume that the computer is at fault. But it turns out both the hard drives from two different companies
coincidence
were fault. Oh my god!
And one of them actually realised they were sending faulty. It turns out later, after a massive court case.
Yeah,
they had to slash their inventory, selling everything off. Camcorders, everything, selling it all off to pay the bank.
Share prices tanked.
Yeah, and they'd gone from 160 million profit in 1988 to 44 million in 1990. Wow. Plus, what's worse is it ruined their reputation because people were buying stuff that wasn't working.
Yeah.
And then it's very hard to come back from that.
Yeah, lots of all the computers they were selling were
because
faulty.
People say Amstrag's dodgy and you can't. So that's the worst.
And they were saying, "Don't worry, we're going to get the computers back out to you." But both the hard drives were broken. They couldn't get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, so that really nearly sent them under. And then satellite dishes came along and saved them again. Well,
one step ahead.
Yeah, well, partly because he just jumped in. Rupert Murdoch says in a chat, I don't know if they're at the pub. They weren't at the pub.
They weren't, but he got hold of him.
Yeah, do you think you can supply satellite dishes?
We need a mass marketable, affordable thing to receiver to go into people's houses to receive Sky TV.
Yeah, and we need 500,000 by next month or something ridiculous like that.
And this is the thing with Alan Sugar. Alan Sugar says, no problem. First. And then how the hell are we going to do this?
How do we make a satellite dish? And he has no idea. And he's looking at bin lids.
No, before he got there, he went to the people who manufacture satellite dishes and they said 30 quid a pop.
Yeah.
And he's like, how can I ever make any money? And then he was looking around and he saw...
a dustbin lid.
How incredible.
It's unbelievable.
His brain is so attuned.
That's his butter dish.
His butter dish is a dustbin lid.
It's very artistic, weirdly. But it's just always looking and thinking.
So instead of getting a satellite dish made, I mean, he is getting a satellite dish made, but essentially he's getting a dustbin lid made for what? 30 pence?
70 pence a unit.
Pence.
70 pence.
So he was quoted 30 quid from the satellite dish guy, and instead he goes to the bin lid guy and gets them for 70 pence.
And he was selling them to Dixon's for 120 quid, and they sold to the public for 199 pounds. But I think that wasn't just it, though, because you got it, and then you got the digital stuff as well. So all in total, I think it was £90. He agreed to make 500,000 units for £90 each. Sold to Dixon's at 120, they sold at 199. So he made 30 quid per satellite dish, but sold 500,000.
Right. And also he did the upsell with the remote control. It was an extra 50 quid.
Yes.
Yeah. And they went for the one with the remote control, so that's an extra 50 quid on all of it.
Probably made 20 million.
Yeah.
And just like, it feels like that. But by this point, they'd had to downsize so much because of all that mess up.
Yeah.
So he said he was firefighting, he was closing down offices. It really, really got smaller. I think it probably saved his life. He'd have had a heart attack. You can't keep going like that forever.
You can't keep going like that, which is why it was a really good idea at that point for him to buy a football club.
Yeah, it's so bad.
So bad.
He says 20th of May 1991 made that fateful phone call.
Oh my God.
And it ruined the next 10 years of his life. It pretty much did.
No, it really did.
Miserable. Okay, so He bought
Tottenham Hotspur.
to
Because
bail them out of going under.
yeah, Terry Venables is a manager at Tottenham Hotspur, and their chairman is it Irving Scholar. Am I getting that right?
I don't
He's
know.
fallen out with Terry Venables, so he wants to take his £6 million with him, and they in desperate need of somebody to save the club. And Terry Venables says, "I've got £3 million. Alan Sugar, will you come in for another £3 million?" And he ums and ahs about it. He doesn't know if he wants to buy a football club, and he thinks about it, I know, for about a day, and then he phones up and says, yeah, I'll come and save the club. Inexplicably. I do have a theory about this.
Yeah.
You know, earlier on I was saying that he's a terrible father.
Oh, yes.
When he's working weekends, his brother is taking his boys to the football match.
Yeah.
And I think somewhere deep down, Alan Sugar might not even realise
he did it for his kids.
He did it because he's been a shit dad. And he wanted to do something for his kids.
Yeah.
Little did he know it was going to be the terrible.
It kind of worked because he got one of his sons to come over
run
and
it. Yeah.
Which is great.
I mean, I'm going to run through this really quickly. So Alan Sugar saves Tottenham Hotspur. He puts in £3 million, realises quite quickly that Terry Venables doesn't have his £3 million. And then on match days and stuff, Terry Venables and all of his hangers-on and stuff are going for meals and the pub and stuff. And Alan Sugar's
really
not being
him
invited. On a match day, Alan Sugar and his family are like in the 5th and 6th row, while Terry Venables and all of his cronies are on the front row. And Alan Sugar's like, hang on, have I been taken for a mug here?
Yeah.
I've just saved this club, given them millions of pounds. Anyway, he confronts Venables, and then Alan Sugar does get to sit at the front row and stuff. But it's awful they would have treated him like that anyway. But quite quickly, I think Alan Sugar realises there's a lot of dodgy dealings going on.
Yeah, he's not the sort of person to sit on a back foot. He gets involved, and when he starts uncovering things, he realises that it's not run as a proper business. Yeah. So he wants to tidy it up.
And I think that Terry Venables, if he wanted to carry on in the manner that he had, he was naive in bringing in an actual businessman to do that, because Alan Sugar could not afford to be seen publicly to be doing any dodgy dealings or anything. So everything was above board. And so, you know, they fell out quite quickly, not least because Alan Sugar put a stop to their dodgy dealings. And then there was a player, Teddy Sheringham, that Tottenham Hotspur want. And Alan Sugar is told he can have him, but Brian Clough wants a bung of £50,000. And Alan Sugar's like, no way. That's a dodgy dealing. We're not doing that. Which
is like a bribe, It's like a backhander.
Of £50,000. You can't make that disappear if you're balancing the books properly.
Which they weren't.
Which they weren't. So Alan Sugar says no, which obviously causes a lot of problems. And it does make you think, why was this guy before Alan Sugar? Why did he leave under a cloud? Because he probably wasn't allowing it either.
But it's clearly not just this club. You start realising it's all football. Basically, football has been... a bit of an underground thing. Nobody's monitoring it, and there's a lot of money knocking around.
So they fall out quite spectacularly. But whilst all this is happening, Sky TV, which is now a thing with all the satellite dishes, is wanting to get the licence to run all the Premiership games, which are historically have been shown on BBC and ITV. Now, the thing is, because it's Rupert Murdoch with Sky TV and Alan Sugar, and they sold millions of units. And the BBC is publicly funded and ITV exists on advertising. They've historically paid about £4 million per season to have the rights to show Premiership games. Sky TV now come in with money, and they can afford to pay.
There's a bidding war.
And Alan Sugar says, just blow them out of the water. Then Sky TV bids £60 million.
He advises them go for £60 million.
£60 million, which basically changes the face of football.
Yeah, I realise that.
Because the money goes to the clubs.
Football, but knowing it's an extremely lucrative business and there's way too much money knocking around, that's the beginning of that too much money knocking around.
This is the thing. Now, Alan Sugar says, now that's £60 million for their first year. It's for a season. Right? It was so successful. Sky made £350 million off sales and licensing all of the football matches, that the next year, now Alan Sugar obviously has a vested interest in Sky, and he was very open about it, and he said, look, I will step out of the vote. They said, no, you must vote. Anyway, it turned out the Sky won, obviously, because they bid that much money. They made £350 million. Now, Alan Sugar could say, brilliant, we'll take all that profit. He actually said to the FA board, ask them this year for £150 million. They asked for it, Sky gave it to them. And Alan Sugar is like, this is a team thing. You know, we all need to benefit from this.
Yeah.
And then Alan Sugar said in the FA meeting, 50 million of this money, all right, we all shared 60 million last year. This year, let's share 100 million and keep 50 million in a trust fund that we can use to improve grounds and do training academies. He was laughed out of the room. They said, no, we want the money.
Yeah.
And he said, you know what they did with that money? None of them, few of them, improved. All they did was pay more for the players, which is why footballers earn ridiculous amounts of money and the bidding war goes up.
Yeah.
All of that money from Sky TV, which could have revolutionised football in the stadiums for everyone, just went to a few footballers.
It's like being Einstein or something, or the atom, or, you know, you work out the meaning of atom and then it gets used for a bomb.
Yeah, right.
You know, you're actually the catalyst, but it's not really ever what you meant to happen.
In the way you wanted it to happen.
Yeah, he really did have good intentions.
Oh my God.
He tidy it up. He wanted to computerise all their systems as well so they could run it properly as a business. And because of that, all the other clubs had to fall in line as well. So it's no wonder he's the enemy of football.
Yeah, because he's put a stop essentially to some of the dodgy dealings, which of course got right at the old school boys club in football hated him. Yeah. And they tried to get him out. Anyway, long story short,
really turns against him.
Of course, because Terry Venables is golden boy of football. Alan Sugar's come in, this businessman, upsetting everything. Anyway, it gets to the point where Alan Sugar wants to fire Terry Venables, and he does. Terry Venables takes him to court. It's a very short court case, I think, and the judge doesn't really understand football, and the judge reinstates Terry Venables, so he comes back. The press are vilifying Alan Sugar to the point that when they're turning up to the court and the football grounds, fans are there spitting on him.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, terrifying.
He becomes the enemy of Britain.
Yeah. Then, this is... quite an amazing thing. Then it's upheld and Terry Venables is sacked from the club, but the FA give him the job of coach of the England team. It's just like, he's so crooked, it's so obvious.
It's business versus football. It's really hard. You know, it's old school versus new school, because he's probably still young then, and some whippersnapper businessman, what does he know walking around in his suit and tie?
But that
doesn't know anything about football, really.
He doesn't, and he didn't, but he knows about business. Yeah. And the shame of it is, all of that was happening, and it was consuming him, and it was taking over his life, and he completely took his eye off the ball. Yeah. Eye off the ball!
Oh my God, he had his eye on the wrong ball!
He had his eye on the wrong ball.
So...
Amstrad was just going down the plug hole. Because he was so...
really depressed.
Yeah, it's awful, actually.
Yeah.
All down to basically Terry Venables. And then Terry Venables wrote an autobiography.
That's right.
Told a completely different story.
Total lies about him.
And what is hilarious is that Alan Sugar sued him. Yeah. Why? I think Venables, it might not have gone to court. I think Venables wrote him a cheque for $10,000 to make it go away.
He might have, because it was obviously lies and he could easily prove it.
So Alan Sugar got one of those big presentation cheques to the Great Ormond Street Hospital, £10,000. And it was from the Porky Pie Bank, signed by Terry Venables.
Excellent.
Brilliant.
It's funny how he says, because basically a lot of times he takes people to court on principle. So a lot of the time it's business, but when it's on principle, he always gives the money to Great Ormond Street.
They've done very well
and they said, can you please have some more trouble come your way, because we need the money. That's his life, really. After that, he sold off Amstrad.
That's not his life.
No. Those are the major parts of it.
But I mean, that's up to the end of the book.
Oh, his life carries way on.
I mean, he gets into mobile phones.
He sold off Amstrad and left it with a shell as a core, so he still kept the name. Yeah. But and
then of course he started the Apprentice program, which is how we all know him. Yeah. And he's a household name now. Yeah. And
he got into property. He's still a wheeler-dealer businessman.
Yeah, and I tell you what, all those screens, you can't go anywhere without finding an advertising screen now. Like, if you go and fill your car up with petrol, that each pump has a screen on. That's Amstrad. In fact, that's Amscreen.
Yes.
So, even he's still innovating. He's still looking for...
So it's Alan Michael Sugar. Cream.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cream.
And then, he got knighted. And then the government wanted him to be their advisor on
the business,
but he couldn't if he was still in business. But he could if he was a lord.
Okay.
Because he can advise from the Lord of
the
House
Dance.
of Lords. the Lord of the Dance. No, he could advise from the House of Lords.
The House
so
of
they
Lords.
made him a lord. And he chose to be titled Lord Sugar of Clapton. Which is hilarious because it sounds really working class.
Yeah.
But it's got the word Lord in.
Lord.
But anyway, he fights on. To this day, he's out there.
I'm still a bit kind of... I don't quite like some of The Apprentice. Ultimately, the goal is to find somebody to invest in. So that's kind of cool.
I just don't care.
Okay.
What I really want is for him to be happy and enjoying all of that hard-earned cash.
I'm sure he does.
I bet he's still got his finger in loads of pies. I bet he can't help himself.
Yeah. He's just sat on his yacht somewhere, fingering a pie,
tampering with his fax machine,
fiddling with his separates. No, he's all right. He's like on Twitter. He's always somewhere hot, sitting on his yacht. As long as he's not being stiffed and diddled anymore.
That's right.